We don't worship so much as follow a set of principles. We want to bring peace back to this wasteland. The world tends toward destruction, so we try to make a difference. We try to remind people why the Great War happened in the first place and help ensure it won't ever happen again.
Most groups in the Fallout world are fighting over land, weapons, or power. But there's one faction that doesn't care about any of that. They don't have soldiers or rulers, and they don't demand loyalty. Instead, they're trying to rebuild the wasteland through medicine and education. They call themselves the followers of the apocalypse, and their goal isn't power. It's to make sure humanity learns from its mistakes. They started with nothing but a ruined library and a belief that knowledge could fix what the bombs broke. From there, they built schools, treated the sick, and tried to guide entire nations back toward hope. But being the voice of reason in a world that only respects strength isn't easy. The followers have shaped history more than most people realize, and their story proves that surviving the wasteland isn't just about guns and armor. It's about what you do with what's left. If you guys enjoy Fallout, then you're in the right place. We have loads on the channel and a lot more to come. Every Tuesday, we're going to be covering every faction in Fallout, so make sure you stick around and consider subbing. We also started a new Discord, which has been pretty sweet. Come chat about Fallout and other games there. I do think you guys will like it. You'll find a link in the description. Thanks for watching and enjoy the vid. When the Great War ended, the world was left in ashes. Cities turned to rubble, and the few who survived had no idea how to rebuild what was lost. Decades later, in the far southwest of what used to be California, people started coming out of the vaults. Some of them settled around the ruins of San Diego, which people began calling Dayglow. These survivors were scientists, doctors, and technicians who understood how the old world worked. But when they stepped outside, they found sickness and radiation spreading from the nearby ruins of the Glow, the old West Tech research site. Dayglow's residents tried to survive, but the contamination crept closer every year. Illness spread, crops failed, and families packed what they could and moved north. That migration changed everything. One of those travelers was Nicole, a young woman who lost her parents on the road. Watching others die while no one could stop it left a mark on her. She saw a world falling apart again, not from the bombs this time, but from ignorance and apathy. Nicole decided humanity didn't just need food or safety. It needed a reason to care about each other again. By the time she reached the ruins of Los Angeles, now called the Boneyard, she gathered others who thought the same way. They settled inside the remains of an old public library, turning it into a shelter and a classroom. From there, the followers of the apocalypse began. They weren't a church or a government. They were just people who wanted to heal, teach, and preserve what still mattered. Their focus was on medicine and farming and bringing back lost knowledge. Nicole's idea was simple: share what you know, help when you can, and never repeat the mistakes that ended civilization. Life in the Boneyard was harsh. It was home to groups like the Regulators, the Blades, the Gunrunners, and the Rippers. Surviving there meant learning how to fight and finding protection from those who could. The followers weren't soldiers, and most called them idealists who wouldn't last long. Still, Nicole and her group didn't leave. They treated the wounded and taught scavengers how to purify water. They even showed farmers how to grow crops again, and they asked for nothing in return. By 2161, the followers had turned the old library into a true headquarters. Their mission was to stop humanity from repeating its past mistakes. They believed war and greed weren't the only causes of the Great War. It was also the loss of compassion and the willingness to destroy without thought. So they spent their days restoring books, salvaging computers, and teaching anyone who wanted to learn. Each life they improved brought the world a little closer to recovery. That same year, a new threat appeared in the region. A group called the Children of the Cathedral began preaching unity and peace. And of course, in the beginning, the followers thought that they might be allies. But strange stories started spreading. Armed guards and people who vanished after joining them. Nicole sent scouts to investigate. One of them, Laura, confirmed their fears. The children served a figure known as the Master, a mutant leading a movement called the Unity. Another man, Talius, escaped from the Master's vats and fled to the followers, proving that humans were being turned into super mutants. Nicole understood the danger. The Master wanted to reshape humanity into something new, but his version of peace meant erasing what was left of the old world. For the followers, that was just another apocalypse waiting to happen. They didn't have an army, but they gathered information, warned nearby settlements, and they tried to slow the children's growth. It was a fight they weren't built for, but they refused to back down. A lot of them died doing it, but the followers stayed focused on saving lives over taking them. When the Vault Dweller finally destroyed the Master in 2162, the followers' work helped make that victory possible. They had exposed the truth, saved survivors, and weakened the Master's influence. They never took credit for it, but the people of the Boneyard knew who had risked everything to prevent another disaster. From that point on, the followers gained real respect. They had survived a war that they were never meant to fight. In the years that followed, the city changed. Under their guidance, the old library became a center of learning. Travelers came to study medicine and engineering, and for the first time since the bombs fell, people could get an education without paying for it. The followers' base grew into a full institution known later as the Angels Boneyard Medical University, a school dedicated to training doctors, scientists, and engineers for free. Their early years were full of setbacks, shortages, violence, and loss, but their belief never wavered. They didn't want power or armies. They wanted a world where knowledge was shared and life was valued. In a wasteland ruled by raiders and mutants, they built something no one else could, a reason for people to believe civilization still had a future. As more towns formed across Southern California, the followers began helping each one they could reach. They shared knowledge and taught people how to organize their communities. When the new California Republic started forming near Shady Sands, the two groups naturally came together. The Republic needed doctors and teachers, and the followers needed protection and supplies. For years it worked. The followers' ideals shaped the Republic's early policies, and the NCR's military strength gave them safety to keep teaching. By the 2240s, their influence stretched beyond the core region. Scholars were sent on long trips to collect old world records and study tribal languages. One of these expeditions was led by Bill Calhoun and Edward Sallow. They traveled east to the Grand Canyon, but while they were there, Sallow was captured by a tribe called the Blackfoots. Using what he learned from the followers, he sort of reversed his capture and trained these tribals into a disciplined army. That army grew into Caesar's Legion, one of the most feared powers in the wasteland. Even with Sallow gone, the followers stayed allied with the Republic. But as the NCR expanded, its priorities changed. President Aaron Kimball's policies pushed the NCR east into the Mojave, focusing on territory instead of rebuilding. Some of the followers, led by Julie Farkas, followed to offer aid and keep peace where they could. Some of them grew frustrated watching the Republic drift away from its early ideals. By 2275, the tension led to a split. A group of scientists broke off and formed the Office of Science and Industry, or OSI. They focused on practical research and worked closely with the NCR, while the followers continued their humanitarian mission. The two groups still respected each other, but their paths were different. One serving the government, the other serving the people. In those years, they became an important part of the Republic's foundation. They provided teachers and doctors and worked with communities on education and medical care. The Boneyard became known not only for its recovery, but for Angels Boneyard Medical University, where all those new doctors and scholars were being trained. The NCR's growth was fueled by this partnership. The followers brought knowledge, and the Republic brought order. For a generation, it seemed like both sides were building a genuine future together. But over time, those things changed. The NCR grew larger, richer, and more focused on expansion. Military power became more important than social programs. The followers didn't share those priorities. As the NCR spread east and began annexing more territory, the followers stepped back. Their original mission wasn't about borders or taxes, it was about helping people wherever help was needed. They saw that as the NCR grew, its policies became stricter, its armies bigger, and its focus more narrow. What began as a movement for rebuilding started to look like an empire in the making. Some members stayed within the Republic to keep helping from the inside, but others started to pull away. They didn't want to become part of a government that was starting to lose touch with the people it claimed to represent. Partnership began to strain as the NCR leadership shifted more resources toward expansion and military strength. The followers warned that the Republic was growing faster than it could sustain, spreading its influence into lands that weren't ready to be governed. Over time, cooperation became more limited as the NCR expanded. They continued to run their schools and clinics, but they had become independent again in practice. They no longer advised the Republic directly, and their focus turned back to fieldwork, education, and humanitarian efforts. They kept their ties with individual citizens, but distanced themselves from the government itself. In those same years, the followers reached farther into the wasteland on their own. Their goal had been simple: learn about tribal customs and bring education to isolated communities. But when the whole thing with Caesar happened, the organization realized that their best intentions could have unintended consequences. The experience changed how they viewed outreach. From then on, they were more cautious about who they taught and how their knowledge was used. Even as they dealt with these losses, the followers remained active in core regions. They continued to train doctors, researchers, and teachers at the Boneyard, though those internal disagreements began to grow. The OSI took the followers' cooperative ideals and reshaped them for government use. It focused on industrial and energy research, using science to strengthen the NCR's economy and defense. The followers respected the skill and dedications of those who left, but they saw the OSI as a symbol of what happens when good science is tied too tightly to politics. Still, even with the split, many members of both sides stayed in touch. The OSI scientists and the follower scholars occasionally shared data and supplies when their goals overlapped. They were no longer one organization, but the connection between them never completely disappeared. Under President Kimball, NCR strategy centered on defending Hoover Dam and keeping its hold on the Mojave. The followers tried to support civilians caught in the middle, setting up relief work and clinics. Julie Farkas led one of those efforts in the old Mormon fort in Freeside. At first, the NCR tolerated her presence, since her branch helped the soldiers and locals alike. But as time went on, the Republic's growing presence around New Vegas created tension. The followers weren't part of the NCR's chain of command, and their free clinics operated outside of official control, which caused this friction with the NCR officials focused on military priorities. To many of the NCR leaders, the followers had become idealists interfering in political and military business. But the group never stopped helping people in the Mojave. They offered care to anyone who came through the doors, helped keep local water systems running, and taught survival skills to refugees. The old Mormon fort became one of the most reliable safe zones in New Vegas, but the strain was constant. Supplies ran low, and without official NCR support, Julie and her team had to rely on donations, volunteer help, and local trades to keep operating. When the courier arrived in 2281, they could choose to help the followers strengthen their position, or protect their stations in Freeside and improve relations around Freeside that impact the followers. Whether or not they succeeded, the followers remained committed to their principles, even as the world around them kept turning to war. The followers have spent decades gathering pre-war data and salvaging working machines from across the wasteland. Their research has made them one of the better equipped civilian organizations still standing, especially in fields that keep people alive rather than destroy. Their work covers everything from agriculture and healthcare to areas like computing and maintenance of pre-war systems, including service robots when parts are available. Out of everything they study, medicine is where they stand out the most. At the university, the organization provides formal health training to anyone willing to learn. Every graduate leaves with the same goal of reaching a consistent standard of medical knowledge and skill, ensuring that no matter where a follower doctor ends up, they can deliver the same level of care. In their best equipped clinics, they make use of high-grade pre-war surgical equipment, sometimes even including autodocs that can perform surgery and restore damaged tissue. Some of these systems are so advanced that they allow follower doctors to install implants that enhance physical or cognitive performance. In the Mojave, these procedures are handled exclusively at the New Vegas Medical Clinic, under Dr. Usanagi, where patients can receive experimental military-grade implants, such as the Nemean subdermal armor and the Phoenix monocyte breeder implant. Their medical practice also includes mental health care. The followers are one of the few groups in the wasteland with trained medical staff who provide counseling and trauma care, including treatment for PTSD-like cases, common among ex-soldiers and refugees in the Mojave. To support both physical and mental treatment, the organization constantly searches for better clinical techniques and more sustainable sources of supplies. This research is vital, especially in distant hubs where equipment and medicine are scarce. The organization also works on low-resource methods to stretch medical supplies like saline and basic chems so frontier hubs can stay supplied without relying on large caravans. Outside medicine, this branch experiments with other technologies that could make the wasteland more self-sufficient. Ignacio, who's a follower stationed at Helios 1, represents their push for the responsible use of solar power as a clean and reliable source to replace fuel-based systems. Much of their progress comes from pre-war records they've recovered, including detailed archives of corporations such as Poseidon Energy. This information gives them a foundation for rebuilding lost technologies and adapting them for a post-war world, using what remains of the old to create something that works for the new. Emily Ortle supports this effort by handling data work and communication tasks for the New Vegas branch, ensuring the group preserves and shares information safely across its network. So what is the core of their beliefs? Who are the followers these days? At the heart of their philosophy is a simple belief: the Great War could have been stopped. The followers don't see it as an accident, but the fact that humanity stopped caring about the consequences of its actions. They remind every new student and volunteer why the world burned in the first place, so that it never happens again. It erased basic skills like farming, healing, and building water systems. The organization made it their duty to bring that knowledge back. Every new outpost tries to rebuild that foundation by teaching practical survival first, then higher learning once the basics are met. Ideas to them should never belong to just one person or one government. Sharing what you know is seen as the highest good. Anyone can walk into a follower's clinic or classroom and pick up something new, no payment needed. Members teach kids how to read, adults how to grow crops, and technicians how to repair tools that haven't worked since before the war. Their approach combines freedom with structure. Locals join because they want to, not because they're ordered to. Each member decides how to help, Some run clinics, others document what's left of the old world science, and others head into the waste to bring medicine and food to struggling towns. Philosophically, the group leans toward peace and equality. They don't follow one strict system, but they draw from ideas that value community and voluntary cooperation. Some members lean towards socialist or anarchist thought, but they all agree that control through fear only leads back to war. They call their way of living rebuilding through understanding. Still, the followers aren't blind to how the wasteland works. Violence is everywhere, and they know happy and peaceful thoughts won't feed or protect everyone. So even as they hold the peace, they stay practical, relying on outside help for safety when they need it, trading when they have to, and adapting as needed. They believe in pacifism, but not at the cost of their lives. There's no single ruler or council giving orders. Leadership happens naturally. When someone proves they can guide others, share knowledge, or save lives, they naturally earn respect. Nicole was never officially in charge, and later leaders like Julie Farkas in New Vegas followed that same kind of system. Administrators run regional hubs, coordinating volunteers and supplies, but even then, everyone works by choice. It's what keeps them flexible, but that same freedom causes problems too. Without strict control, a few members have gone their own way and caused damage. Of course, as we know, like Edward Sallow, who later became Caesar. The followers see these lessons in what can go wrong when personal ambition overshadows their mission. Recruitment is open to anyone who shares their goals. Some join after being helped by a clinic. Others prove their worth by volunteering in settlements or offering rare expertise. A new recruit might start as an assistant, helping an archivist catalog old documents, or they might help clean up medical centers and distribute food. In time, they become full members trusted to represent the followers on their own. It's a slow process that builds responsibility through experience rather than orders. Those who endanger others or bring trouble to the group can be expelled, but punishment is pretty rare. They prefer teaching over judgment, but if someone becomes dangerous, they will step in to protect others. But that comes at a cost, and funding has always been their greatest challenge. The followers don't charge for basic help, and they refuse to turn charity into profit. Clinics such as the New Vegas Medical Clinic accept caps for advanced procedures to stay operational, but most services in places like the fort remain free. Their resources come from donations, scavenging, or trading with local farmers or merchants. For a century, they keep themselves running by salvaging medical gear and old supplies from pre-war hospitals and warehouses. Wealthier citizens are sometimes asked for donations when they can afford it, while poorer settlers give what they can, like food or scrap. Everything goes back into their clinics and schools. When money runs short, they adapt by creating trade systems that benefit both sides, fixing water pumps in exchange for crops, or maintaining medical equipment for communities that share food or clean water in return. They also make use of whatever is available to produce medicine and tools. Sometimes that means working with less reputable groups when it helps everyone, like maintaining the garrets still in exchange for supplies needed to keep their medical programs running. It's not ideal, but it lets them keep treating patients. Even then, larger trading companies like the Crimson Caravan usually demand market prices and rarely offer charity. To the followers, that's fine. Their goal isn't to build wealth, it's to make communities self-sufficient. When a settlement becomes capable of feeding itself, keeping its water clean, and making its own medicine, that's a real victory. It frees up their limited resources for the next struggling town. Research is also another part of their identity. Follower scientists study everything, from how languages and cultures evolve in isolated tribes to how medicine can be made using post-war plants and chemicals. They're one of the few groups that study the wasteland as it is, instead of trying to rebuild the past exactly as it was. Their scholars have spent years documenting the customs and dialects of tribal groups, like the Great Khans and the people of Zion Canyon. Others focus on finding new ways to make medicine, from vaccines to painkillers, all using scavenged materials. Their mix of science, anthropology, and healthcare makes them one of the most unique organizations still standing 200 years after the bombs. Everything they do connects back to one idea: rebuild civilization through knowledge and compassion, not through power. The followers know their approach can be slow and frustrating, but they believe lasting change only happens when others understand why they're doing it. The organization isn't out to rule anyone or raise armies. Its purpose is to teach people how to take care of themselves and others. So one day, there won't be a need for groups like theirs at all. What do you guys think about the followers? Are they fools for keeping up this frame of mind? Or are they the wasteland saviors? What faction do you guys want me to cover next, and which ones are your favorite? Let me know. Thanks for watching, and remember, enjoyed time is never wasted time, and I'll see you in the next.